Okay. So I am waiting on a couple of people because there's a couple of people who are actually working really hard to help people find connection and community. And so I wanted to be able to give them space to do it here. Um, it's not something that I am well versed in. So it's not something that I'm going to be the best at doing. So it's not my space today. It's more other people's space today. If I can get my dog to stop licking my foot, I would be very happy. Um, so we have a couple of beautiful human beings here in TikTok that are doing their best to help people get find connection with their indigenous to Turtle Island roots. They were able to get 22 people in the last like 4 or 5 days to be able to get their enrollment in various nations. And so, because I am lucky enough to have a larger following, I thought that it would be a good idea to bring it in here so that they could use this space to be able to do a little bit more of that and get a little bit more information out. We should have people in relatively soon, and that will be when we kind of start. I've been looking at a couple of different things over the last couple of weeks. I know that I've been gone for a minute and I apologize. I had a vacation and then I really wasn't feeling very well. Some medical stuff from my surgery in March. And so I kind of just sunk down into my couch and stayed that way. Um, and so I wasn't online at all. I am going to try within this next week to get a little bit more active. We tried to do a live last night for a little while, or I went live last night for a little while. It can be a little exhausting for me. And so I didn't stay on for too long. Yeah, much healing time. I had a hysterectomy in March, and so my body is still very much in the middle of that healing from the hysterectomy. And so with that healing, I actually spent like a day in the hospital, like trying to figure stuff out last week, and my body is just like not listening to me. Hello, lovely.
Hey, what's up?
Not much.
I want Renee to come in here, man. She is an elder in her tribe.
Nice.
And she is very, very helpful. I'm inviting some folks.
Perfect.
I don't know if they're going to have time. We all just sort of like try to keep the door open.
Absolutely. Well, and I think that that's really the thing, is just to kind of keep the door open. I don't like putting expectations or obligations on people, especially when it comes to labor, so totally, it's totally always an open no. Like, you can tell me no anytime and I'm happy with it.
Yeah. And there are some people who disagree with what I'm doing because they don't get to, it seems like, I think this is a result of colonization and intergenerational trauma. Some of us have been invalidated for a lot of our lives, and our culture's been erased in a lot of cases, or come close to erasure. We're still in the middle of the largest genocide that this earth has ever seen.
Oh, yeah.
Okay.
Oh, yeah.
And with that being said, some of us are like, I'm the most indigenous, and you can never be as indigenous as me. And, follow me in my ways because I want to be a leader. Like, listen.
Yeah.
Listen. If the tribes literally have on their website, this is how you enroll and this is the proper way. Okay.
Yeah, absolutely.
Like, I'm not the arbiter of indigeneity. I'm just not.
Well, and nobody should think that they are.
If somebody is of indigenous ancestry, they're indigenous. Unless you're talking about somebody who, like, their ancestors were traveling in the original peopling of the earth. But if your people were the first people on a continent, okay, and they settled it, and you know what I mean, and you're still there, then you are indigenous to it.
100.
You don't owe any homework for that. Now, is it encouraged that you get in touch with your culture? Yeah, but that starts with being able socially to be able to claim that you are indigenous, and then it moves towards tribal membership, right? Like or pueblo membership, or just being a member of your community, being in contact. But even if you just want to claim being indigenous, you don't want to do any of the homework or whatever, maybe one of your descendants will pick it up. There's been a lot of trauma, okay? And some people are tired and they can't.
That's so true.
Maybe one of their yeah. We need to appreciate that.
Well, and I always think of, it's so I went through a period when I was younger where I would claim all my different heritages on anything that I did, right? Like all of those, what's your ethnicity? And then I went through a period where I stopped because people were like, well, that's harmful. And I went, okay. And then I started again because I realized that, when we see more indigenous people on a census, more money goes into nations. When we see more indigenous people across the board, we see that more sovereignty is uplifted, right? So, I've always felt like that the numbers, right? Like as long as they can say that we no longer exist, as long as they can, claim that we're something else, that really lessens the weight of the argument. But when you have more numbers, the weight of that argument goes up, right? And so for me, it's a matter of numbers. Like, and I feel like a part of Land Back can very much be a matter of numbers. So finding people who are able to, enroll, are able to, be a part of, and people who are claiming that Indigenous heritage, to me, is extremely important.
Yeah,
we have to recognize
it starts
that.
with that. Like,
Yeah.
we're not pruning the family tree.
Right.
I'll tell you a big problem that I see. And that's, why we've been able in the last 5 days be able to connect 22 people to their tribes? Because frankly, it's been easy. It's been easy. There's been a couple people who actually it took some work, right? Yeah. But generally speaking, it has been spit spat. Some of these connections happen in the matter of minutes.
That's awesome.
Like not 40, 30, 20 minutes. We're talking like 1-2 minutes.
That's so beautiful.
Let me explain what happened. Some people have already done all their work. They've done their ancestry. They know their connection. They know their tribe. They know where they belong. They know their people. The problem is people's attitudes run around being like, you're not indigenous enough. You don't have enough blood quantum. Don't even bother. Don't look. You have to identify as white now. You have to identify as black now. You have to identify as this or that, or, I'm not indigenous enough. So I'm not even going to lift my eyes to look. I've done, but they've looked because they feel it, right? Like the ancestors are calling them, but they don't dare claim it. They don't dare claim it outwardly, so they don't even look. And then what we do is we talk to those people. I'm like, yeah, but I'm not indigenous enough. I can only claim indigenous ancestry. That means you're indigenous. Let's look at what your tribe has. I don't have enough blood quantum. Let's see what your tribe has to say about that.
Yeah.
And all we do is we go on the tribe's website and we look and we maybe, link them up with some information, the application, stuff like that. People are afraid to even contact their people that they come from.
Oh, yeah.
No, indigenous is not a way of life, Nikki. Indigenous is not a way of life. Indigenous is, you're born indigenous. If you have indigenous ancestry, you are indigenous. As far as like tribal membership, that's a whole other issue. That's a membership to a nation. Now, whether or not you're going to connect and live the way your tribe lives and be in touch with your culture, that's a whole separate thing too. This is a complex and multifaceted subject, but you are born indigenous. It is your birthright to claim it.
And I think that that's really real. And I do get the whole, like I do know that we've had a lot of trouble caused by pretendians. We've had a lot of trouble
Yeah.
caused by claimant, and things like that. I also know that there's a lot of people who have tried to claim, who have tried to be involved, who have tried to fight for, who have tried to belong, who have been, you know, told no, fuck off. You're not good enough. You're not enough, and that I
Mhm.
think to me is part of the saddest thing is because I would challenge anybody to go back 300, 400, 500 years and ask your ancestors whether or not they thought somebody was enough. You know, I don't think that that's something that really entered into it a lot of the times. I in the communities that I know have never seen this idea that we have today that you don't count because you're not enough of it. Especially when we're talking about peoples who
Can you?
frequently adopted.
I'm sorry to interrupt, but like there seems to be like Nikki, I love you. Stay, hang out, okay? Because there's a lot of different things that we are. We are multiple things. More than one thing can be true at once. Okay. Um, Indigenous is not. I mean, it is and it isn't a makeup of a bunch of different tribes. It also includes the detribalized and the disconnected who come from that land. Indigenous means you are indigenous to that land, regardless of whether you're connected to your culture or not. It is strongly encouraged to be a part of that culture, right? An indigenous culture, and then there's an indigenous person. Those are two different things that should be connected, but they're not in all cases, and that's because of genocide. And I think that's where the disconnect is. There's indigenous culture and there's indigenous people. They should be connected, it should be, but we have suffered a genocide and we're still going through it today. We're just trying to heal that. So running around saying that that indigeneity is a way of life, I mean, there is an indigenous way of life, and there are also indigenous peoples. And telling indigenous peoples that they can't identify as indigenous is discouraging them from reconnecting with the indigenous way of life.
In fairness to Nikki, I've seen some of Nikki's stuff. She's very in support of detribalized indigenous people as well. So
I know.
just
I love Nikki. I know who Nikki. I
okay,
know who you are,
okay.
Nikki. I love you.
Just wanted to make
I love
sure.
you. I'm asking Nikki for help.
Yeah, yeah,
Honestly, straight up, Nikki, help us.
yeah.
You get it. I know you do. Once you think about it, like you strongly stand for people connecting with their culture. I do too, but like, how do I put it? There's been so much trauma that some people just won't be able to, but maybe their descendants will, and we need to leave the gate open. And we don't get to decide who is of indigenous ancestry, you know? And the legal and the actual are different. Absolutely. Oh, no, no, no. I mean, help me, like, in general, Nikki. Help me correct people and help them understand there's indigenous way of life and then there are indigenous peoples, and because of genocide that may be broken. I know Nikki's wonderful. It's just like, and we're all caught up in this shit. They almost had me saying that shit for a minute.
Well, and I think that, our understanding and our language constantly changes as we become aware of things around us, as we become aware of better ways to do stuff. It's constantly adapting and changing. And so it's totally understandable. I mean, I have stated before, to be indigenous means that you're connected. And then I realized, well, there are many people who are indigenous that aren't connected. Do we deny the fact that they're indigenous just because they're not a member of a nation? So I think that we, as we're changing our patterns of understanding, it comes into play.
No, Nikki, I'm not misunderstanding you. I'm just like, this is the point of contention. People misunderstanding what indigenous way of life versus indigenous people is. Being connected and being a dancer, you know this. It is so important that we always say it's a way of life, it's a way of life, it's a way of life. But they forget that, well, I mean, it is, but there's also, we bring them home, bring them home. We have, I think, I don't blame anybody, for wanting to participate in what I call the Great Indigenous Off, this competition of who's the most just indigenous-ist, and it's like, and I refer to it as that is because like I want people to understand that's silly. It's we need to let it go. If somebody qualifies, if the tribe has put out, especially for like tribal membership, hey, look, we want people to come back. A lot of tribes have actually dropped blood quantum. Did you know that?
Yeah,
It's
I
not
did
just
know
the
that.
Cherokee. Yeah, they've dropped blood quantum. If you can trace your lineage back, they just want you home. And for those who have closed enrollment and like it's difficult to get in, they still in many cases qualify for a different type of an ID and still therefore affiliation. It leaves the door open for them to connect at least culturally.
Let me state really quick. Today, what we're working on is people who have done some genealogy or think that they may have this connection. I know, like yesterday, it was somebody who was like, I think they lied to me and I don't have that connection. We're looking at people who are trying to reconnect and trying to find their nation and their people and helping them get there. Peace and Truth has been doing a lot of work over the last week with a couple of other creators to connect people
Renee
to
is
their
one
nation.
of them.
And Renee is one
Renee's
of them.
An elder.
I'm just meeting you, Renee. It's such a pleasure. And they've been working on getting that connection. So today is more about helping people who are not connected currently find connection than it is about speaking of the truth that we're all kind of going through. We will have more about the truth that we're all kind of going through and lives that are centered specifically on that. Today, though, I do want to make sure that we're using this time to focus on what Peace and Truth and Renee and other people within this group of people are doing to try and get that connection going. Absolutely, Paisley. Then you're absolutely welcome to come up. That's exactly what we're looking
someone to
at.
help. Let's show you how easy this is.
That's what we're working on.
An example to kind of give a little more clarity, and I talked to Peace about this last night. There are people who went to the Indian boarding schools, and because they learned a trade, whether it be sewing, farming, plumbing, whatever, they never came back. They went to New York City, they went to any major place where there was industrial jobs, and they left. And some of them never, up until this point, have went back to their reserves. Their children, grandchildren, and great-grandchildren are indigenous. They are registered boarding school students forever. So the question about if they're indigenous or not is not even an issue. But those children and grandchildren and great-grandchildren do have the right to go back to the reservations, and if they meet the quantum, they are allowed to rejoin the tribe. But prospectively, what we want people to do is go back to their families and their clans. Go back to place where their ancestors are buried at. Because when you leave, you can become forgotten and you can get caught up in the way of life outside, because that was the whole purpose of the boarding school, for you to leave there. There's nothing industrial going on the reservations. Nothing. So that was just a pathway to get you not to go back, because then you can make better money outside. So I'm just using it as an example to show the reality, because using the words connectivity and indigenous, yeah. But once you look at the example, would you want someone to be your cousin or your relative who never came back to come, and that's your blood, and they can't even, practice? We're family first, and that's just no one can tell you cannot go back to the res and celebrate Christmas or whatever holidays, or come and practice or watch or observe ceremony. Nobody has the right to tell anybody that that's a no. Nobody. So I just wanted to give that as an example, so we all have a picture in our head of what this may look like for some people who are we, can say are not connected. Okay, I'm done.
Thank you.
We are not the arbiter of indigeneity, and we are not the arbiter of who can join their tribe and who doesn't. I can't, you know what I mean? Either it's there or it's not. And, indigenous, you're born indigenous, whether you're detribalized or not, period, end of story. Own that shit. Because that's the first step towards bringing our people home. I have a sister who is indigenous, but she's very anti-indigenous. She's not enrolled. She's, some problem there. And it is a result of intergenerational trauma. She didn't get that healing. She didn't go to therapy. She didn't get the opportunity to reconnect like I did. Well, I was born connected, but still, like, you know what I mean? Be enrolled and have that formal, everybody is not going to have the opportunity to formally reconnect to a tribe. And so we need to watch our mouths, all of us, with regards to invalidating, especially like the Southern Indigenous and the detribalized. And think about it, if somebody's disconnected, there was trauma causing that. That means you're literally disrespecting the descendant of a whole missing person. Okay? Just have a little bit of respect. Argue with your ancestors, not me, because if you read the decision for ICWA, there's a lot in there. It's like 300 and some pages, but they talk in detail about the children wailing, the loud lamentations of the mothers, and the sullen fathers begging to have their children brought home. They said, bring my baby back. They didn't say, bring my baby back if they're indigenous enough. You're talking to the descendants of those people. Stop it. Have a little bit of respect and some compassion. Just because we were lucky enough to know our connections doesn't mean that's literally a missing person in your family. Stop it.
And I think so many people don't realize just how recent so much of that disconnection is as well. Like, residential schools not closing until the mid 90s. I know several people who were, victims of the 60s swoop. The person who is legally adopted me as my mother is a victim of the 60s swoop. There are many other elders that I have met who are, there is a lot of trauma that has gone back over a couple of 100 years and several generations. So some of it might be really recent and some of it might be 200 years old or 150 years old. And understanding what each of those levels of trauma brings, or rather understanding that you can't understand what each of those levels of trauma brings unless you have been subjected to that trauma, is, I think, a very huge step for some people, because most people think that they, because I've lived through this, I know all of that. And we have to see that there are so many different levels here. So many, and all of these levels connect back to genocide and re-victimizing people and holding people accountable for what happened to them, and creating more trauma around it only perpetuates the genocide that's ongoing to me.
That's 100%. Paisley yeah. I'd like to know what's going on.
Yeah. Am I?
No, you're good.
Oh, okay. I was separated from my indigenous family. I think it's because my biological father disappeared right after I was born. So the pale skin, and my brother and I were both left like right after my brother was born. So we're both pale skin, blonde hair, and it was a complete disconnect. And the indigenous side, my mother was really against the indigenous side. So she was constantly pushing him down and talking bad about that side of the family. So we didn't bring it up. We just talked, my brother and I talked about it together, but we didn't talk about it with her, and we kind of just kept it a secret. And we knew our father's name, so we would like call his house and just listen, and then we'd hang up the phone. But we, every once in a while, like every few years, a family member or family friend would show up, And I remember them walking into the house, and they were always so magical to us, because they were from the tribe, and they'd walk in and they'd look at me and my brother, and they'd say a few things to us, and they'd leave. And my mom would always be bent out of shape because they'd show up. But then we'd be really curious and ask a bunch of questions, and she'd push it down and push it down. And so we never really got to ask questions. And then he died. My father died. And we just never got to really connect. And I'm 54 now. And it's been hard, because I look like him in the facial structure, but I have my mother's German, blonde, pale.
So you see how you lean and justify on lookership?
Right.
And I'm not insulting you.
No, it's always been
Yeah.
pushed on me, and it's been shamed. I've been shamed, and I've always wanted to connect. So we always, I would sneak to the powwows, and back then they were private, and we weren't allowed to go in. They were always private, and so I would sit outside of them and sneak and look inside the doors, the cracks of the doors and stuff, so I could have some kind of connection. And it was so hard for me because I wanted connection so bad, and we were just never allowed that connection. And it just, I remember one time I was 12 years old, and my mom and I walked past my biological father in the mall, and she waited until he was like 20 yards away from me, and said he just walked past us. She never gave me the opportunity to ever connect, and it's always eaten at my soul, And so recently I found out that we have free Paiute language classes here. And so they're offered all over the state of Nevada, which I love. So I'm going to be going to those courses. They do online, or you can just go down. They're twice a week. It's awesome. And so I want to learn the language before it dies. They were worried it was going to die. So
can I just draw attention to something?
Mm-hmm.
Because a lot of those who feel like, who invalidate those who are reconnecting, you can't speak over us. You can't speak over us. Listen, nobody really can speak over anyone with a specialty in what they do. I learned real young. Well, no, I learned in my teenagers. I should have learned it younger. You could learn from something from anyone. And you have an experience that you can speak on. Obviously, you can't speak over with regards to language, because you just said you're learning it, right?
Right.
You can't speak over somebody who's fluent in that subject.
Mm-hmm.
But nobody's the mostest professionalist indigenistist. It's not. That's what we're saying. You have an experience that is an indigenous experience. Mm-hmm. Okay, and it's valid, and you can speak on that. And I understand perspective is rooted in position, but that needs to be validated as well. And obviously respect elders. You'll notice when Renee speaks up, I shut up and I mute usually. I get excited sometimes. She gets me going, but I respect, because she is an elder. I'm not an elder. I'm older. I'm the leader of my family, but I'm not in a leadership position. Even what I'm doing, I'm nobody's. There's a guy that works with us. Conoco 86. He has connected the most people by far. He is amazing. Walks them through paperwork, all that. Renee's way better at this than I am. But that's because she knows people, and she does. Since she is in a position of leadership within her tribe, she works with other tribes. You know what I mean? And I just want to tell you, your experience is valid, and that is something we need to talk about, so we stop running off people trying to reconnect. Do you have record of your connection with your father?
I do, and I also did the DNA through Ancestry DNA, and
So you have your family tree.
yeah, this was crazy the other day. I looked, and I've never had a paternal hit, and I got one the other day, and I've got goosebumps right now all over my whole body because I never had a paternal hit before, and now I do. And I contacted her, and I was like, "Hi, we're third cousins, and I don't know how we're connected, but please, let's have a conversation through DNA and find out how we're connected this way." So that was neat. But I do have a family tree, and I do know my father's name and his family, a few of his family members' names. So that's kind of neat.
Do you have records from old school censuses? I'm sure, because like Ancestry is a wonderful resource for that. Because we might literally be able to. Do you know who the last enrolled member of your tribe in your family is? And do you know what your tribal's policy on enrollment is?
I don't. Matt, when I heard you say about the quantum, what was it? The blood
quantum, yeah. Well, let's look up right now.
Northern Paiute is, well, they lived in Carson City area. So I'm not really sure which area. See, I'm not even really sure where you register, what you do, and because
I'm just looking up. See, this is exactly what I'm talking about. You know you're Paiute. You know.
I know.
For a fact, you're coming validly, like you're coming honestly, but like the very fact that you haven't looked online to see what I'm not insulted. I'm just saying, like, or like made a call to see. That's the fear that I'm talking about right there.
I did.
You did?
What they say? I did when I was in my 20s.
Okay.
And then they berated me, and I freaked out, and I was like, I can't deal with this. I was really nervous because I'm a bit of an introvert, ADHD introvert kind of a person, and so they berated me on the phone because I don't have contact with that other family, and they wanted names and stuff, and because I didn't have them at that moment, they're like, well, I can't help you, and the lady was really rude, and I cried, and I was young. It was 30 years ago, so I didn't contact back, so that's why. And
so I'm pulling up right now. Now this is Paiute Tribe of Utah. What do you think, Renee? You think that's going to be the same connection?
Well, we can use the process of deduction.
Yeah, and if we contact them and they say we're not, but they're going to know where the other band is, if, you know, worst case scenario. And since you have your family tree now, you need to contact them and do it. Let me see. Member portal. Oh, they got a member portal. They got, let me see. Yeah.
Okay, I'm going.
It's pitu.gov. And they literally I just saw something flash across their scene. It says ICWA intact, exclamation point. Oh, really? So they do care about connecting lost people and keeping their tribe together. So let's go with the attitude of what the tribes have to say about their own people. Let's not, you know, with me being Pawnee, I'm not even in my tribe's leadership. I don't have a say. You know what I mean? Let's go by what your tribe has to say for your connection. How about that? How about let's respect that?
Yeah, I'm definitely going to. And I was thinking when I go into my classes, language classes, getting connected with the ladies in there would be really helpful too.
Oh yeah, definitely.
Oh, look at this. They got powwow, they got connect, they got a little button that says connect every Friday, PITU events, holidays, newsfeed, Facebook, Instagram, media archive. Let me see. Oh, it's got constituent bands, our culture, our lands, our royalty, services, member services. Let me see. Maybe that'll.
I remember
They literally have a thing says text us right there.
Okay, I'm doing it. Okay,
I have to
you were my helpful pathway to.
I wanted to say,
Yeah,
thank you so much
it's
for
been a
sharing
fear,
that.
and I think
Um,
yes, I appreciate this so much. I can't even tell you. Thank you.
Well, and so it was not enacted in 1978. It's important to understand that if ICWA was enacted in this time, that this, like today, if you are Indigenous and you're going through a divorce, you can bring that into the court as a making sure that your children stay in contact. I don't mean like you can get custody based on it, but making sure that contact is enacted and maintained. And so this, what you're describing, is part of the reason that ICWA is in place. And I think that it's really a powerful statement of how that disconnection can take place for so many people because of what was going on for so long. And the fact that this is not affecting just prior generations, but affecting current alive here generations. And I am so sorry, and I want to hold space, I want to hold space for a moment with the fact that the self the trauma that your mother's thought processes inflicted on you and your brother growing up is a huge part of that hardship of trying to find that reconnection. I feel like for a lot of people that I have talked to, and that's why I think that it's important to double down, as Peace has, that, there's really no shame in feeling that kind of fear, feeling that kind of trepidation, whether it's, I don't want to take because I might not be, or might not be enough, or whether it's, this doesn't work this way because, or whether it's having called in and been told off, like whatever, experience it's coming through and with, right? That it's one of the things that I heard Peace talk about last night that really rung with me is getting people to understand that these are not, you are not the one who should be have that shame here. You are not the one who carries that shame here. Your resilience and your need to move forward and to have that connection, that internal need to have that connection, that resilience, is the beauty of you. And the shame of this is not carried. The shame of your disconnect, the shame of your needing or feeling the want to return to, instead of having been born within and raised within, that shame that garners that fear within people, that is not yours to bear. It is somebody else's, because of what they did, not anything you ever did. And I love the fact that you're willing to come in and share that story. And I am so, so glad that you have been able to be resilient through all of that trauma, to the fact that no matter what anybody is saying about what you can and can't claim, you're still out there learning your language. Thank you.
Thank you. I really appreciate that. I really appreciate your words. Thank you so much.
And isn't I greatly appreciate the fact that you're sharing and speaking on that experience, because we need more disconnected Indigenous experience shared and more of that representation out there, so people understand how harmful it is. Look, I understand you can't claim your tribe, right? Because like you're not a member of your tribe yet. You can claim descendancy of your tribe, but you are Indigenous regardless. And like Luna says, she's not ready. And here's the thing. We're going to meet people who never in their lifetime are going to be ready. I get it. They stand as Indigenous regardless. And this is part of the Indigenous experience. And in order to heal that and reconnect our lost people, we have to leave the door open for their descendants to finish that work. And we're not going to get through that by, I just want to do a quick exercise. It's for those who are detribalized, okay? because there are a lot of tribes who are detribalized, especially I see a lot of disrespect towards like Southern indigenous and detribalized indigenous peoples. Close your eyes for a second. This exercise is just going to take a couple seconds. Close your eyes, picture a white man, okay? I just told you to picture a white man. I want you to picture his haircut, and I want you to picture his sense of style, what he's wearing, his shoes, all that, okay? Everything. If he's wearing any jewelry, anything, okay? You're picturing a white man. Got it? Open your eyes and say out loud what he's wearing. What's his hair like? What's he wearing? Okay, now I want to ask you why you pictured someone from today and not someone from like a couple thousand years ago or even a few hundred years ago. Because I know that's what you pictured, because that's what we're doing when we say, oh, you're not indigenous enough. Some people are an accurate representation of their people today as they stand because of things that have happened in history. They are valid. They do represent a depiction of who their people are today because of things that have happened. I'm no more indigenous than a Mexican indigenous person who, just got here and in the United States and has been disconnected from their culture. They're still indigenous, just as indigenous as me. And we say, oh, well, they're mixed. Well, guess what? So am I. So what? And my ancestors are in the ground here just the same as theirs. This is our land. We're from here. We're all of our ancestors, not just some of them. And we want to encourage people to identify as our people who are our people. I can't tell you the right way to reconnect. You have to try to find where your people are. I'll hold your hand. I'll provide moral support. We didn't do squat. Where you at, Paisley? Where you at in this journey? Have you looked up or talked to anyone in there yet?
In the
on the website, I'm assuming you have a third device or second device.
No, it's actually being charged right now. My devices are all actually dying as I speak. I'm at 30% on this phone. I'm sorry, but I have actually talked to other Paiute people in the area. I found another Paiute person on the app that lives about 20 minutes from me. She lives out at the lake, out at Pyramid, at the reservation out there. So I thought that was pretty neat. But connecting to other people, I think, is going to be my first step, and also getting on that site. That's going to be today, as soon as my device is charged. That's so cool. I'm really, really excited to look and see what I can find out today.
Awesome.
Yeah.
I'm gonna answer this phone call on my other device real quick. I'm gonna be right back. But please continue.
But this living here in the desert, I tried to move away, and that did not work. I tried to move to California in the green. That did not work. So I moved back to the desert. I couldn't imagine being anywhere else. So the land called me back, for sure. It's an amazing thing how that works.
I do find it really amazing that we can feel those connections. It doesn't really matter, how long time has been, that when we are in a place where our ancestors have been, we feel this depth that is deeper than anything else, I feel.
Absolutely. I go out to Pyramid Lake. I don't know if you guys know much about the Paiute people, but we have a big lake that has a big rock formation out in the middle of the lake, and it looks like a pyramid. But that's my spot. That's my favorite place. That's where I'm connected and feel their pull. And so I go out there and sit, and it's like saltwater lake in the middle of the desert. But it's a really neat place. It's very spiritual. and there's a rock formation out there called the Mother, and that's one of the places I'm drawn to as well. Oh, you were looking at it, Luna? It's really neat, isn't it? And there's really some great stories about, you look up the story about the water babies. There are artifacts there, but you're really not allowed to take them. And if they find you taking them, you're in trouble, because it is you get to a certain place when you're driving out onto Pyramid Highway, and you are on indigenous land, so you're not allowed to take anything. You will find the indigenous police out there, and they're not really forgiving of you taking anything, but it's really fun out there. Well, I like it. It's a desert lake, but there's no trees.
It's actually federal law, for anybody who doesn't know, here in the United States, as it should be, that if you find like an arrowhead out on the ground, you're not allowed to just pick it up and take it.
Nope.
You're supposed to either mark it and call somebody out, or if you've picked it up for some reason, take it into your local tribal office, your local nation's office. And this is because of the fact that early archaeology and anthropology was so grave robbery that there were laws that were enacted, because people would actually take home vast numbers of belongings. We like to call these belongings instead of artifacts now. Vast numbers of belongings, and keep them in their attic or their basement or a display case. So if you do see anything that you believe belongs to or would have been something from an indigenous group, it is required that you notify some form of the local nation's office or a local federal office to come out and see it, or whatever they're going to do with it or choose to do with it, because it is illegal to possess these. Not for you, Paisley, just for everybody in the live.
Yeah, I don't take much. It is the neatest place. When I was a kid, we'd go out there, and they have little shells, because we've got little creatures, because it's a salt lake. So there's little shelled creatures out there.
That's awesome. I didn't know that.
It's a neat place. So there's little tiny shelled creatures. So I would spend like all day collecting these shells. It's just fun. But I would always tell people, okay, you can't take them home. You have to leave them. And they'd look at me like, what? I say, trust me on this. If you leave the area with anything, you're going to have bad luck. So trust me when I say you have to leave it. And they wouldn't believe me. And we would end up taking a trip back to the lake. The things they take, because of I warned them. It's like, you don't get
Did
it.
I have to return this?
It is definitely there's some bad luck that's going to follow you. Trust me. I know what I'm saying. But yeah, it's interesting, huh?
Well, and I think that's an important part of it.
Yeah. I never had the bad luck, but everybody around me did. It's like, okay. There's just a lot of really neat stories out there that happen out at that lake.
I believe it.
Yeah.
1 second. I think I have a cat playing with a plastic bag. Be right back. Never mind. It's people raking things outside through my living room window.
Oh no.
The stories that you can hear in many different spaces, the level of understanding of space that has carried down is so beautiful. I am frequently just blown away by how academia refuses to hear and yet wonders what happened here. And it's like, well, there's people you could ask. They probably could tell you. Maybe you should listen.
Yeah, if you disrespect certain sacred areas, then it's just a karma. There's a karma, I guess. I don't know what to call it, because like I said, I feel like, you know, I didn't know much, except for I knew that you had to respect it. And I would see people do the most awful things out there at the lake and disrespect it. And I was thinking, okay, well, it's going to come back.
Yeah.
So, anyway. Okay. Well, my phone is going to die.
Absolutely.
I had a great talk, and my phone's going to die, so I'm just going to be listening in the. I'm going to go plug in.
Okay.
And I really appreciate this. Thank you so much.
Thank
You've
you
been
for
so
coming
helpful.
up.
Thank you.
Thank you.
And
Thank you
please
all.
keep us posted, Paisley. Keep me posted.
I
I'd like to
will.
hear what happens. That's I'm very excited, because I feel like this is absolutely one of those instances where there is that absolute known connection there, and I can't wait to hear the outcome. Thank you so much.
Thank you. Thank you all. Bye-bye.
Bye.
Bye.
So we run across a lot of people. Oh,
You might have to kick me. I don't know how to get out.
Oh, hold on. I think I can. Well, I don't want to kick you, but let me try.
Bye.
Oh, no.
we run across a lot of people, and that was brave. Straight up, that was brave of her to do, because a lot of people are running around like, oh, you can't claim indigeneity unless you're connected and this and that, or at least have to be on the road. You have to leave the door open for their descendants. It's not for you to say. You can't be like, you can't claim to be a member of the family unless you come to Christmas dinner. Like, what? Come
Yeah.
on. This family, like, that's kind of disrespecting our identity as Indigenous peoples in the first place. Like, we don't, this isn't, that's not what this is. It's not who we are. I love that picture that you have in the background. I want to talk about it for a second.
Go ahead. You
She
want to
belongs
ask? Are
there.
you asking me? This is I wrote a children's book. I'm trying to figure out, like, my KBDP publishing is really tripping me out. I've got it all put together. It won't let me upload it right, so I've got to figure out why it won't upload. But I wrote a children's book, and the children's book is called We Are We. And the story in the children's book is sitting down and connecting with the world around you, feeling your roots grow into the ground, hearing the entire world around you, feeling the heartbeat of the mother. Just that entire way of connecting. It's meant to be both a spiritual method of connection and a psychological method of connection, because it falls back on the grounding and centering that we see with psychology these days of, smell 5 things, see 3 things kind of stuff. And so it's meant to give a bit of connection for children, a bit of understanding for children. And then the book itself is a progressive drawing of it started as just an outline of the person sitting there and the ground and nothing else. And then it went into the roots, and then it went into the trees, and it was all progressively drawn in color pencil. And then at the end of it, I painted it to put it together. But it also shows the mistakes and how I was able to take those mistakes and kind of morph them. And things like that. And so it's meant to be not only the ability to ground and center and things like that, but also, that understanding that it's okay to screw up, that sometimes your screw ups are the beautiful part of you. And so this is the end product, and I'm in love with it. I thought it turned out really well. I was very happy. It took me months to storyboard out and everything else, but I was really happy with the end product.
Hi, Luna.
Hello, lovely.
Am I too harsh? Am I too mean and rude?
You're not too harsh, mean, or rude. Oh.
I can't hear you. Like, you cut out there for a second. Still cut out.
Can you hear me now?
Yes. Oh,
We could.
Tickety talk, be nice. Oh no. Jamie Moore is another person in our group who's been helping out quite a bit.
I'm going to invite you, Jamie. You're more than welcome to deny the invite if you would like to. Please do not take my invite as a you need to do anything. And then Luna, when you come back in, there we are. Okay.
Jamie Moore went so far. I want to tell you a huge contribution that she made. Okay, so Jamie Moore went and looked up where actual censuses were, right? And it's on ancestrypaths.com. That was you, right, Jamie?
Yes.
Yeah, and it literally, like, it had my tribe. I'm Pawnee, and it had my tribe censuses, and I had a good time yesterday. I was going through when they were doing the first census, and they were asking them for their names, right? And a lot of my tribe just put like Skeety, Pawnee, like.
They were very open with the fact that they were not in a good mood. They were not happy with the government, and they were just like, "We are who we are. Just get over it."
And then like I saw a lot of, and we talk about the evolution of a culture, right? If you look in South America where they did the terrace gardening, and I bring this up as a good example of our ancestors. Yes, traditions are important, but do you think that our ancestors just sat there and be like, nope, won't look at it, nothing new, nope, that's a cell phone, keep that over there, I'm going to play with my rocks? No, they didn't. How do you think they got so advanced? Because they were smart. Now, they were cautious, right, and smart about the way that they advanced. They were doctors, scientists, that we had our own politicians and people who guided government leaders and things like that. And, we were intelligent and well-educated people, okay? If you look at the terrace gardenings, alongside each of those terrace gardens for any one pueblo, there was like a small section. And that was a section for them to experiment with new plants, right? And there's a lot of reasonings for that. First of all, they needed to find out which temperature, so which level was good for that plant. What works, And is it going to be good for the environment if we do this? What does it do? They had experiments. They tried new things. It was a whole society. To think that everybody shared one mentality is a little insulting to me. I mean,
absolutely.
I think there was, in every one group, there was always I'm going to be a scientist and do this new thing, like, obviously. And then there was, I'm sure, an elder being like, whoa, let him do what he's doing, let him figure it out, and, staying with traditions, it was a balance. It was a whole society. And when they learn new things, people saying, oh, you have to do everything exactly as your ancestors did, otherwise you don't count, you don't qualify, are the same people who use Mary Jane. You know what I mean? Like, that was not introduced until later anyway. You know what I mean?
Yeah. Like,
it's okay to learn and grow and, like, make new things. You have a cell phone, right? Everybody here has a cell phone. Don't judge. And you can't sit here and hold somebody's identity hostage because they don't fit your narrative. That's all I'm saying. Our ancestors were smart. They would have moved with the time. Don't be insulting. Don't be insulting. Cultures change and grow. Looking at that census, I saw of what you would call colonial names or white names too. They did that for survival, right? Like, that, like, don't wag your finger at the past. You weren't in their shoes. You don't know what they had to deal with.
Especially when you look at the names that they've been given, like Sarah. How many Sarahs do I have?
As a Sarah, I take offense.
But like, there's so many, and there's so many Sarahs and Sallies, and they're interchangeable usually as well. Because they're picking out their white names. They don't know what they're picking out.
They don't care. It didn't matter to them, but they were doing it just for survival. They're like, oh, I got to carry this around? Okay.
If you call me Cynthia, I'm more likely to stay alive. So people are going to call me Cynthia now. That's how it went. Unfortunately.
Yeah, and, I'm sure that, like there are people who are living on the reservation, right? and their family goes to ceremony, they choose not to.
Right.
You know, maybe they're dealing with something, they want to go. Their family's involved in the culture. Let's say they're not, you know. You talk about, I hate it when people just homogenize us and be like, in order to be indigenous, you have to meet this measuring sticks qualifications. And it's like, dude, no, stop. Is it encouraged to be involved with your culture? Absolutely.
Do I want to be involved with my culture? Absolutely. And I'm finding ways that I can do it by connecting with my cousin, who I consider a sibling, and also I consider an elder to me. And he's helping me learn our language, and he will claim me. I have a nation claim, but our people will claim me as one of their own.
Right.
And I don't have to be enrolled for that either.
No, you don't. Renee, I'm sorry. Let me shut up and let you talk. I will talk forever. I mean, Renee's got very valuable information.
Listening. Enjoying the listening.
Well, I remember you saying something about how there's the tribal government, the 501c3 that's involved in that, and then there's the people too. There's two things, you know, there's the 501c3, there's the tribal government, and then there's the people themselves, you know?
Yeah. How people get that confused. That, oh, well, people don't understand. Well, I'm not going to start off being negative and say people are not taught. You go to a tribal meeting, okay, they may collect dues, they may not collect dues. That the tribal organization, the business side that they don't talk about, is established so the tribes can make money. And that's usually called the 51 or 503C. This is also if your nation participates in writing grants for programs per se. That's all through this 501.
It's a 501c3. 501c3. I have to keep repeating it so I get it because it's stupid, and that's the whole point of it.
Right, and that's so that there'll be a since you're part of a sovereign nation, a nation-to-nation relationship. This is why, you know, where the casinos come in. This is where the BIA, if they're giving you funding, that's where that comes in. But the tribe is the family. It has nothing to do with the business. But people get the two mixed up. If you have the five, whatever, y'all got it now, because I'm part sleepy and hungry. They get them mixed up. Well, you can't be a member of the tribe. Well, the tribe, which part? The family part where I'm related to you, or the business part? And people are using the business part, which is either an organization or some other association. And some of them are using it, and I'm just going to be honest because this is what my tribe does, can't say that for everybody, as a social club. They want to let some people in, and then others who should be in, they set up a whole nother stipulation where it's impossible, literally, unless you stayed. Now, you know, if they like you and you can dance good, and you know, willing to go out and perform, or they're going to get some acknowledgement by having you there. Oh, you're in. But if you're just somebody who wants to come in and tell the truth about what's happening, no, you could be like qualified 20,000 times over. They're not going to let you in. Someone who went to college or, you know, is educated, because most of the people in my family up until probably the 1960s, they were farmers, and they didn't, you know, focus on education, or education is not a big deal. They get intimidated, and they're thinking she's going to come in here and change something. And that's what the big problem is, change. And they hold on tight, so tight to this heritage that they have, that if they think, okay, cuz I'm not going to take that away from you. I'm okay with what you're doing. And that's what people have a tendency to do. They want to protect what is already there because they've heard the horror stories about how this happened, people lost this, people lost that. Because there's a false security about Native identity. I'm not giving an example. If you're a federally recognized tribe and you look down on state recognized tribes, well, need not do that, because I know, like they're talking about the situation out west, I know tribes right in Oklahoma that had their federal recognition just snatched away from them.
Mm-hmm.
Now, I've had to be federally recognized one day, and then the next day they don't even know who you are because of one treaty in 1831 got contested. That's when it hit my brain that, okay, this is about family. It can't be, oh, I'm going to fight you because you don't have a certified Indian Boys card and all this other stuff. These things are just tools that they give you false sense of security. When we should go back to the old days. What happened before they even came here? We were still natives. We were still conducting business. And they weren't even here to regulate anything. And they did a better job then. It was when the government got involved in our business that everything started going downhill. People fighting over who's native. People fighting over land. We believed the land was everybody's. But what happened to all that? Instead of wanting to welcome people in, and I learned this when I moved to Texas and started talking about to Indians from Oklahoma, and they started saying, we're fighting over the checks that we get. Oh, my grandfather has oil on his land. They just want to come over here and take it. That's why they're trying to sign up for the tribe. And I'm looking like, wow, I'm glad we don't have no issues like that. But we've let the colonizers shift who we define as family.
Mm-hmm.
Now you're fighting your own cousin. I mean, how would you feel if one of these people who has at least talked about in the panel, if that person you found out was your cousin, you're denying somebody the right to know their own biological family.
I am probably cousins with a couple of y'all. To be honest, because I found so many cousins on TikTok. Because I live in Wisconsin, and obviously that's not where the reservation is. Ours are in Mississippi and in Oklahoma. I'm far away from home. Far away from home.
So
I don't know when I can get there. I would enroll Choctaw if I chose to enroll.
Oh, okay.
Yes, but Choctaw and
my cousin.
I also have Cherokee ancestry as well as Impact ancestry. So I'm all over the board here on the East Coast
right.
for cousins. I'm finding so many. But interestingly, it was through my cousin on TikTok that I was able to find out more definitively that yes, I am descended from Choctaw people. I could go to the rolls if I wanted to. I just currently do not feel safe enough to do that, especially as somebody who's trying to conceive. I don't feel comfortable there, especially because my cousin is my cousin Math, just had her baby taken from her, even though Ikwa is still here.
Yeah, they have workarounds.
It's been a whole mess.
I'm so sorry.
I'm family with the family, so but my cousin, was able to help me out with dream walking. Not something I can control, but something that has happened. And he was like, our ancestors took you to Nanawaya. Nanawaya is a mound in Mississippi, I believe it's located. That is our creation story. That is where we come from. There is a hole in the earth, and our story is that we came from this hole in the earth, and that this mound was our mother mound, and that was like our capital, our everything. But we came from the ground. We are some of the ground people. And they took me there, and I know it was definitely there because I saw the mound and also the cave, both. And it had been after like several dreams of like searching. Like I was looking for something. And then I was like, Randall, help. Where the heck was I? And he's like, they took you to the mother mound. They took you home because you're not home. And that's so important to me. The experience, and also just the ability to have, a cousin who is more of an elder in the community be able to tell me, this is where you went. And for me to just sit there and go, oh, tell me everything you know.
All right. Well, I know something. You say you're with Chob?
Not yet. I'm trying.
Okay. Well, I can tell the Cherokees, when the female got pregnant, they restrict her to, this is the other important thing, health. When you connect it with your tribe, you figure out things that they did to stay healthy. And one of the things, I guess, because of complications, any woman who was going to conceive, they took salt out of her diet. So that's something important you may want to know.
That would be very interesting because I have an issue with my I have a autonomic nervous system issue, and I actually have to usually eat more salt or else I faint. So I wonder if that would just balance me out.
Yeah, that may balance you out. But I know a lot of us over on the East Coast, that's where my tribe is from. I was also talking to Peace about this, is that the tribes never used like the oxidized salt.
Iodized.
Yeah,
Iodized. But we got iodide from different sources, like fish, and we got it from kelp and seaweed and things like that.
We're shore Indians right off the coast, so they would go and take mats and baskets and put seawater actually in the baskets or on the mat, let the seawater dry out, and then sift out the salt from the whatever container it was in, and that's what they used to cook. So I said, oh, maybe I need to change. And ever since I changed this to sea salt, I've never had a problem with my blood pressure. Not to the point where it was. And that was because when your system has been eating through your ancestry and what they eat, it kind of just conforms to like regular function. That's one of the things that's really helpful to know, family-wise, tribe-wise, because again, like what has been said, our ancestors were very intelligent. They were, and especially with medicine and being connected to the creator and the ancestors, even though we take aspirin out of a bottle right now, well, you used to just go to a willow tree, peel back the bark and boil it or chew on it, and headaches and pains would go away without all the other extra stuff that's being put into the medication at this point. So something that was free, now we have to pay about $10, $11 if we want to get the name brand for. So that's why being connected gets you. Because then you're able to talk with people, like you said, you talk to your cousin, you'll be able to look up traditions and medicinal situations, change for diet. And that's real helpful, real important. That's why this conversation about membership, who's talking about that? We just need you connected to your family and your tribe so you can have a blueprint of what was going on beforehand, because you are your ancestors in the now. I always say that. You are them now. You carry their DNA. You carry their trauma. You carry everything they carry. And that's exactly why some people will, certain scenes in movies, certain things, it brings back that blood trauma. Or as P says, that come on, girl, help me with it. Generational trauma.
Intergenerational trauma. Intergenerational trauma. Yeah, because it comes from one generation to another, but the footprint is still there. I just want to share one quick short thing.
Go ahead.
Those invalidating people, like, look, I get it. If you're going to say, you can't claim to be, you have to claim lineage from a tribe. You can't claim to be a member of that tribe unless you are a member of that tribe. Like, I get that. That's different. Yeah. But indigeneity is literally a medical necessity that you claim it. Especially if you get pregnant or you fall into any kind of medical situation, because it can literally affect your medical health, like your physical health. Okay. It puts us, we have the epigenetic footprint on our DNA that changes our risk factors for medical things. And people say, well, fine, they could just claim ancestry. Now, you know what? That's selfish. Shut up, sit down. Take several seats. Right? They're indigenous. Stop it. Okay? Literally, argue with your ancestors, not me. Argue with the doctor, not me.
Argue with my ancestors, not me.
I'm just saying that we are not the arbiters of indigeneity. Okay? We're not. We don't get, well, why? Because you want to feel special? Yeah, you're special. You're important. You know what? So are they. I don't want to share my toys with my new little brother. Like, here's the thing. Your little brother was kidnapped a long time ago. We're just bringing him home. He doesn't act like me. Yeah, because he was kidnapped.
Yeah. Because we were forced to be white.
Yeah.
Forced to assimilate.
We're just going to have to get over it. Talk to a therapist or something. And, yeah, it is what it is, man. I don't have control over it. You don't have control over it. Especially when we look up on the tribe's websites, we talk to the tribes, they say, yes, send our people home. Our enrollment is open. Please send them back to us. We need answers for missing people. They need closure. That's not your business, especially if you're pointing from one tribe to another and saying, stop that, or don't make them feel accepted enough. No, if they're indigenous, they're indigenous. You're born indigenous. It's your birthright to claim it.
I think the epigenetics argument is such an important argument too. I'm currently doing research specifically on my grandmother who was a slave. I found her the certificate of birth for her first children born outside of slavery. I found a marriage certificate. Now I'm trying to find where she was born. And I think I was looking today. I think I found the slave rolls that she was on. People look at me and I'm not black. I mean, my skin tone is not. So I still have that ancestry and I still feel that. And I was looking, as I'm looking for her information, right? There were things that just screamed at me. Like there were pieces of information that popped up and I went, that's it right there. And I can see she's yelling at me from that page. People don't understand just how much of a part of epigenetics plays in the energy of our bodies today, the way that our bodies react to things, the memories. I remember reading stories about, I have a grandfather who was 11 years old in the Revolutionary War and fought in the Revolutionary War. And I remember reading that when I was first researching my ancestry and just breaking down, bawling, because I could feel, as a war veteran myself, that trauma, and feel the depth of that pain, and just the connection, and seeing that we carry those things down, we pass those things down, and we have to remember just how much even that little piece of somebody's ancestry carries within their soul, how much that trauma imprints on the body.
I can tell you that my mother's Eastern European ancestry, this war has made me just break down at like the most random times. And it's like, I'm not even over there. I'm not even part of this war. Nobody around me is this affected. Why am I this affected? It's because that's where my roots are. It's where my mom's roots are.
Yeah.
At least maternal haplogroup.
Somebody asked the question, ancestral eating. I'll give you a prime example. Before the colonizers came, our tribe ate something called corn pone, which is they made a bread out of cornmeal. Once they came, they introduced yeast and white rolls and white bread, French bread, whatever. Then we were encouraged to stop eating that and start eating the bread with the yeast in it. Well, of course, the corn pone, which is real dense, made with molasses, was made natural. Unfortunately, the wheat rolls, of course, if you're a diabetic, which a lot of natives are subjected to, that's going to send your sugars off the Richter scale. And that's because we didn't have that introduced to us as a culture. We ate something more natural based on corn, which our systems were used to. So if you look at foods that we ate before they came, our bodies will adjust better to that because that's what it's been used to. And now we're talking about genetics, we're talking about DNA, we're talking about your body is a product of your ancestors' body. Other thing is that we never had sugar in the form of white processed sugar. I know my people, they tapped maple trees and they used honey. These are all different things that we weren't used to cause us to still this day we're fighting with diabetes. A lot of soups, all kinds of soups, usually with some kind of wild green or onions. And all this stuff was natural. And now look at our diets now. You look at one thing, it's got 15 million, monosodium glutamate. Well, what is that? Our people never use that. We dry food to preserve it and to preserve taste. And so when I say generational eating, there are tribes that are returning back to pre-colonized diets and farming. The Three Sisters, yeah, we knew that. But we weren't eating like cinnamon rolls back then and eating ice cream.
Hey, I'm offended. I like my cinnamon rolls.
Well, I'm not trying to be, look, I ain't trying to offend. I'm trying to say that's not something culturally that we were eating. And of course, we're not using as much energy as they did. I'm not walking to the river and getting water and going out finding wood to start fires. No.
If we can have Kanika, I saw Kanika just joined. He is probably the most important member. He's done the most work.
He popped back out. Did Jamie jump down? I missed Jamie jumping down. Really quick, Linda Black Elk, who you can find on Facebook, does a series on indigenous foods and gathering and preserving in indigenous ways. It's Linda Black Elk. I can't remember if she's Dakota or Lakota, but she does a whole series off of Facebook on how to preserve. So if you are into that or you want to know more on that, that is a great resource.
Transfer the check.
So, also, just to be real clear, I see a lot of the young ones saying that we can't claim Christianity, otherwise we're not indigenous enough. We need to decolonize that. Here's the thing: cultures learn and grow and adapt and evolve. Okay. Some of us claim Christianity, do not do any of those practices, but claim it so that it protects us to be able to safely practice our own ways because they've been criminalized before. You know what I mean? I think that we need to show a little bit of respect for those. First of all, that has nothing to do with your indigeneity. If you practice the old ways, then there's probably a problem, but that's something you'll have to deal with within you and your own tribe and your own family, your business. But youths saying, "Oh, well, that's a harmful mindset," this and that. Dude, you don't know how they practice. If you don't know exactly how that person practices, you don't have, especially if that person has very clearly said it's not the same one, it's not the same denomination. Maybe they use it as a blanket to protect their spirituality because they don't want it. It's close practice. They don't want to talk to people about it. That too is valid. And especially, they say, "Oh, I'm so traditional and I follow the old ways." Listen, they are traditional. You would know that, They have a right to claim it. What's up, Kanika? Folks, this man, that 22 people who are connected in the last 5 days, most of them he connected with their tribes. And he has been so supportive. And he is connected to his tribe. And he has been so accepting and so loving. His heart is fully there for the people. He's doing what the ancestors called him to do. Kanika.
Okay, what's up, y'all?
Hello.
Hey.
I just had to jump in because I heard you guys talking about my auntie Linda.
Who's Linda?
Oh, Linda Black Elk
Linda
is your
Black Elk.
auntie? Oh my God, she's amazing. I love Linda. Go on.
Yeah, I just jumped in to hear y'all and check in, see how my family's doing.
We love you so much. We love you so much, Kanika. This is amazing. How you feeling? Did you get rest?
Yeah, I'm at work right now.
Oh my God, wonderful. I'm working while we're talking too. I always work while I'm online. I heard someone talking bad about the fact that I'm online too much. Listen, I work because I own my own business and I'm in advertising for it doesn't matter what for, but I'm in advertising. I do guerrilla marketing. Being online, helping folks and talking to people and socializing makes the rest of my work go easier. So, yeah.
Yeah, I just had to stop in and check on the phone. I had to get back to work. My boss is calling.
Have a great
We
one,
love
Kanika.
you.
Thank you.
I should be out by like 3:30. Then I'll get back to
Sweet
work.
time. All right, we love you.
Yeah, see you guys later.
See you.
Bye.
These lives always help me. I love these lives. Widow's lives make my day better.
Yay. Thank you.
I love what is lives.
Okay, like this. This is so funny. My fiance, Chris, he has caught me watching Widow's lives in the shower twice now. Because I was just like, I have a shower seat because I'm very disabled. I have a shower seat, so I'm just sitting there and I'm just like, oh, warm water on my back, and I'm listening to this, and this is interesting. And he's like, "Are you listening to Widda in there?" I'm like, yeah. Do you want to hear? Because it's always so interesting, and I love sharing what I learned from you, because being disabled is a full-time job.
It is.
And I cannot work. So, I can't do any other work. So, I take care of what I can around the home. And then when Chris comes home, I love to just be able to give him information. Like, do you want to hear about cannibals today? I'll tell you things about the cannibals we were talking about last night because it's so cool. And he's so cute and he loves to theorize with me. Uh, I think the most recent one was, so you said that violence started like 10,000 years ago, right? I'm like, yeah. But you're saying the whiteness didn't start until about 8,000 years ago, right? Like phenotypically like presenting white.
Yeah,
Do you
yeah,
think that's
yeah.
related? He's like, do you think that's related?
Well, we should specify the majority of phenotypical white, because I mean there were some with, as far back as we go. But yeah, the rise of the majority being, phenotypically lighter skin might, I don't know. I see so
Right? Like,
many correlations with so many different things. It gets weird. Like I've got 1,000 different ways that my mind just blows on it, like just goes outwards on it. So
oh, and I would just be able to like talk about it to him, but he just listens, ask questions, and I love it. I love him.
that's awesome. I'm glad you have somebody that has that for you. That's always a plus.
He also got super excited because I was super excited because I was like, Sarah said she's going to be on today. I'm going to be able to see Widda today. Widda's going to be live again. And he got so excited and his eyes lit up and he's like, I'm so excited for you. Like, thank you. I'm learning things.
That just made my day. Thank you so much.
Oh, thank you. I appreciate it.
I appreciate the appreciation. It sometimes it can be so hard to come, and I'm so introverted. I mean, I love humans, so I'm also so extroverted, like I get around people and I'm like, here's my pebble, see my knowledge. So but I'm still like, I'm so socially awkward, and I have so many social anxiety issues and everything else. And we were talking earlier about belonging, and I don't even belong in my own family. Like my own family don't even have, I've never belonged anywhere, so all of it together just compounds. So coming on sometimes can be this just exhausting, like putting myself out there. That is why I do it, though. The ability for people to hear things that may not be heard or understood otherwise, the ability to make those connections, the ability to have those understandings, and the ability for me to make those connections. That's why I come. And so I appreciate that appreciation, because it keeps me here. It keeps me here when it's hard to log in. It keeps me coming back.
I've had a really hard time with the fact that due to how my disabilities have kind of compounded, I can't go to school either. So this has been such a brilliant way for me to engage in lectures again and just to listen and absorb knowledge, because that was my favorite part of college, which is probably why I could not really handle it very well once COVID hit, because I really needed those big lectures. I love those lectures and they teach me so much, way more than I can intake via book reading.
Yeah.
So this has been so beneficial for me, being able to learn while disabled and not able to actually like go to the university.
Yeah, I can see that. Well, that's a part of it too for me is, I can't work either. And it is a combination of physical and medical or mental, but literally I cannot put my safety or my world in anybody else's hands anymore, because everybody screws it up. And especially if, because of my military trauma, especially if they're male, right? And that's no harm on men. I love men. But not, but what it is my reaction. Like if you're a decent human being and you're male, I'll bawl. I can't control the bawling. If I don't view you as a decent human being, I'll step. So it's like, I know I can't work for somebody else at this point, and that's a part of why I do this, is because it's work. It's doing something that is functional. It's also very much the belief that none of this information should be something that's gate kept. None of this information should be something that you have to pay to go and sit and listen to somebody espouse to you. It should be something that is easy to understand and easy to find. And it is not kept in that way. And so it's important to me that we make it that way. Mainly because I want people to understand we're not this shithole that we think we are. We're actually really beautiful human beings. You know?
For real. And it's really nice because I can listen while I just do housework. Like, I love lives because I can do that. And it also makes my housework go by a lot quicker.
That makes sense.
Exactly. And, you know, if someone's sitting here doing something, if you are running around because you're connected and telling people how to be Indigenous and invalidating anyone, helping people along their path is fine. But if you're invalidating anyone who has valid Indigenous ancestry along their path, no matter what stage they're at, you're making yourself the arbiter of indigeneity, and you stand wrong. Okay. And if someone else comes along and they're like, no, you know what? No, that way. Because nobody in our group is saying we're the boss.
Right.
Nobody in our group is saying we have the way. We don't. We have to look things up. We have to contact people. We got to hook you up and send you there. We are moral support. We're encouraging, and we're just helping people look things up and get connected. That's it. I can't tell you whether or not you're Indigenous. I have to help you along your path. And like, I tried to get an example. This is how it should go as some evidence toward the fact that we're everywhere and we're scattered, and this is a bad thing. Yesterday, I tried real hard to get somebody who was not Indigenous, told me they didn't think that they were Indigenous. There was just a rumor in her family, you know, just to show people that we won't mistreat people who turn out not to be Indigenous, just to show like an example, to get folks to be brave enough to step forward and ask for help if they need help, right? I was like, yeah, well, you know, you'll serve as an example, you know, somebody who doesn't pop up to be Indigenous. Well, guess what? It looks like she's probably Indigenous. Like, we found records of people who lined up with her family tree on the DOS rolls. Multiple. And it's like, and with a situation like that, our people are so scattered, we need to stop invalidating people. We don't have the right to do that. I don't have the right to do that. I don't. And I'm not telling people, oh, yeah, you're Indigenous because I say so. No, if it's in your family records, here's your people. Go look, go talk to them. They'll show you. And yeah, I get it. Yeah, technically speaking, some tribes don't have resources because, you know, whatever. But that's still at least connecting them in some way. And maybe their descendants will have, you know, or maybe later in life. Like, we had a young lady earlier today, you know, Paisley was like, you know, I called in my 20s, I didn't have all my information, but now I do have some information. Well, now maybe Paisley can get enrolled. You need to leave the door open. People run around and be like, oh, no, don't talk about it. Don't identify. That's offensive. Actually, no. How about we not speak for our entire tribe unless we have that position? That is disrespectful.
I agree with that.
I highly agree with that as well. I won't tell my mother that I found out that she's Indigenous.
Sounds kind of mean.
Well, here's the thing. My mother is, first of all, is the reason I'm disabled. Second, when I told her about my ancestry that I was able to find on my dad's side, she said, why does it matter? You have so much other things in you. And when I tried to explain being two-spirit and the significance, she did not care. My mother is being very
anti-Indigenous,
and I do not want to give her the leverage to be like, oh, well, I'm actually, so I can say this, because that's what she's going to do. And she's just going to white woman all over the place. There's no way that she's actually going to be able to enroll, because her blood quantum for that tribe is too low. She cannot enroll either. But I also I cut off contact with her in August, and then I found out the information. So there's not even any way I really can tell her.
I think you, as a descendant of her, have more say so in that than I do. I think the whole situation's sad. How about that? Like, you know,
It's very
that,
sad, and it made me realize why my great grandma was an alcoholic. I now know where that comes from.
I'll say I'm glad that you're connecting.
Yeah.
How about that? Can I do that? Because
Yeah.
it's so hard, right? Like if I throw it down and be like, she has a right to know, which I feel like she has a right to know, and I'm sure you feel like she has a right to know, but then you're like trying to be protective, but you're not really the say-soer, right? Like you're not the person who has a say-so, but then you kind of do because you are her descendant, and then it kind of protects, because like the whole purpose of telling her if she was going to be problematic would be so that her descendants at least know, but you are the descendant, you do know. So,
And she's
okay,
having hysterectomy and cannot have any kids. So,
well, right. So,
and I'm in contact with my sister.
That's so hard.
So like my sister can know these things, but she's still clinging on to this whole blood quantum concept of what percent are we? What percent are we? I'm like, it's
well,
we
tribes
touch it to that.
Well, tribes change membership qualifications all the time, and many tribes have actually dropped the blood quantum thing, and they have decided to go by descendancy and lineage, they call it. So, like that changes. Policies change, so the record should be kept.
Yeah, and like
I mean, that's my opinion, dude. You know,
my sister has the information and everything that like my mom herself, I believe if she got the information, she would not use it in a good way.
Yeah, I don't know your mom. I've never met her, but I just don't think we should be in the streets saying, that to people we don't know, who aren't in our line of family. You see what I'm saying?
Yeah, sorry about that.
If someone gets up here, y'all. Yeah, no. That's important to talk about too, right?
She's not correcting you, honey. She's saying that she shouldn't be able to go to your mother and say something, or some stranger on the street can't go to your mother and say something, but you going to your mother and saying something is perfectly fine. She's not correcting that.
Oh,
yeah. Yeah, I'm just saying strangers. That's family business, what you're talking about. And I'm not saying don't talk about it. I'm saying definitely talk about it, because that's an issue, right? The very fact that you're brave enough to discuss that. I have a sister who's anti-Indigenous. She knows she's Indigenous. She's rejecting it openly. Like she needs some therapy, right? She wasn't raised with me. So it's like she's rejecting it. I don't know her kids because we were literally raised differently, and she's in a whole other different state. And so like I don't know her kids, but I know she has a couple of kids, and they're adults now. And I promise you, as soon as I get a hold of them as their aunt, like if they come to a gathering or whatever, I end up meeting my nephew and niece from that particular sister, I will be informing them. But that's my decision. You know what I mean? Because I want that lineage. You know what I mean?
You want it noted and everything so that they know.
It's family. That's family business internally. But if we're talking about someone who gets online and they're like, well, I found out that I'm Indigenous, or I suspect I'm Indigenous. Let's say they actually found out they are validly of Indigenous lineage. And let's say they don't act Indigenous enough for my stereotype, right? Like my narrative. They don't fit it. I can't come along because I don't know that person. I can't come along and be like, you're not you can claim Indigenous ancestry, you can't claim indigeneity. That is absolutely snotty, ridiculous, and very hurtful. An anti-Indigenous act. It is an anti-Indigenous act to tell somebody of valid Indigenous ancestry that they cannot identify as what they are, regardless. But you and your family, your business to try to heal and balance that, because it is so complex and I'm not in your shoes. I don't have the right to go into your family and tell you what to do.
I did tell my dad, and then he turned it into a joke because I was like, we have Cherokee, but we also have Choctaw, and he was like, oh, like that Kenny Chesney song? And then just went off on that, and I was just like, okay. Bye. I don't need that. Because he does not want to connect for actual connection purposes. My dad has always wanted to connect just so that he can own an eagle feather. Like,
That's a new one.
No, I've heard that before. I've heard it before. But even that is not my business. Like, you know what I mean? Like, your tribe might be, I don't know. See, that's you and your tribe thing. Like, everybody says, oh, well, there's some people just want to take advantage of resources and da, da, da. First of all, that's the tribe's business, whether they choose to help that person or not. Okay. Tribes have a lot of autonomy when it comes down to saying who gets help and who doesn't, and who gets to join and who doesn't. And that's their business. I'm not making the decision for your tribe. I have no right, and it is offensive and anti-Indigenous for me to come from another tribe and tell your tribe what to do with your people.
Exactly.
Dang straight.
You know?
Yeah, he went about it the wrong way. Because we knew the entire time growing up, like, yes, we're Indigenous. We're not sure which tribe. We're not.
Right.
We weren't sure. I had to go through the digging to figure it out. Which is fine. I'm good at that research. Whatever, I could do that. But once I told him, it was just kind of like, he's one of those people that uses the identity as a talking point and just uses like a little token so he can just go around and say whatever he wants with no consequences, because he can say, oh, but I'm Cherokee, I'm Choctaw. I know that's what he's going to do.
Well, he can't do it off of yours though. Like, you connecting, that's your connection. You know, he has to make his own connections. And if he wants an eagle feather, he can do what it takes to get an eagle feather.
He'll never do what it takes to get an eagle feather. Sorry, that is mean, but
no, it's not at all.
He'll never do what it takes.
Oh my God.
Almost every single person that I've told that to has just been like, what in the white is that? It's like the capacity in that statement of like, I want to be able to get my eagle feather. Sir, you are not owed an eagle feather. Nobody owes you.
You can get a turkey feather for free.
You could even go on TikTok and pretend that your turkey feather is an eagle feather, as I
get a die one, exactly. Okay. There's good replicas out there, I'm gonna tell you that.
We saw in a live last night where somebody got pretty parakeet feathers and decided they were their eagle feathers.
Oh no!
That ethnocentric focused live last night. The person who was an ethnocentric coming up there put his feathers on, and they were yellow and green. And we laughed.
Oh my gosh!
Yeah, it was crazy.
Native problems.
Well, he had called a Lakota man. He had called him Asian, but with a slur. And he had been called up to, because he was saying that the man wasn't Indigenous. He was, that whole ethnocentric thought process. And so when he came up and was arguing, the Indigenous man who had been speaking was at ceremony. He was at Sundance, and he was sitting in his car from Sundance. And so he was like, sing me a song in your language. If that's who you are, sing me a song in your language. And he wasn't the guy wouldn't sing. And then the guy's like, well, I've got my feathers, and puts his feathers on. And the Lakota man has a whole fan, pulls out this whole fan, and he's like, yeah, mine look better. Somebody called him an eBay Indigenous person, and I was just rolling. Got your feathers from eBay, huh?
That's exactly what I'm thinking. You can buy it.
It gets crazy.
Anybody have any good solutions for fruit flies?
Vinegar in the bottom of a bottle with a paper funnel.
I think I have vinegar. I think I can do that.
You can do any sweet juice or wine as well, anything like that. Anything that is kind of a sweet or kind of a vinegar has a very sweetness to it, but fermented, something that's sweet or fermented in the bottom of a bottle, and just like a quarter of an inch.
All right, I'll do that. Thank you. I hate fruit flies. It's one of my like bugs, or one of like my biggest like phobias.
Mm-hmm.
And I'm really hoping that being on a lower unit's not going to cause any problems. But our last apartment, our people next door had terrible fruit flies. Awful. They were coming to our vents.
That drives me
So
insane.
I'm gonna get these things as soon as I can, so that they're not gonna be a problem to me.
Yeah, that's what I've always used. It works pretty well.
We're almost finished being unpacked. Almost. We're almost there.
You're doing better than me.
Oh, I have to. Like, I have to get it done, or else I will get super bad anxiety over it.
For me, that's my generational trauma. So I just push it all the way and say, stop listening to your mother in your head.
I lived in boxes basically all growing up.
Yeah. No, that makes
sense. Because we moved so much. Yeah, so I think my brain is like, I don't want to be there anymore.
Yeah.
Let's make this better. But like our bedroom is finally done. Like we were waiting forever to get that done because we had to have stuff fixed. Not that I didn't have a bed. Nobody worry. I still have a bed. I have 2 beds, and my feeding pump is on a nice IV pole that can roll between the rooms, so I can always be fed.
That's nice. I do want to remind everybody, if you're coming in late or if you haven't been in, that what we're working on today is connection for people who have Indigenous heritage within Turtle Islands, within the United States and Canada specifically, who that Indigenous heritage, it connects to a nation and who are trying to connect to the nation with their Indigenous heritage. We have a couple of people up here who are more than willing to help find that connection, help you find the tools to find that connection is the best way for me to put that, I think. My boxes are open today for people who are trying to find that Indigenous connection. Let me know if it doesn't let you invite, and I will go ahead and invite you. I will probably be popping off here between 3:30 or 2:30 and 3, because it's almost 2 now and I have other things I have to do and I can only handle too much functioning. But I do want to make sure that everybody is aware that we're trying to make sure and help people connect today, help people get to that space where they can get that connection if that is what they're looking to have.
I might be able to help people with my connections if anybody has old surnames in common, because that is commonly how we speak with Indigenous spaces. Is, who's your family?
Well, that's something I also want to address. Not you, but like we all see the lives where somebody is trying to basically put themselves up as like the head Indigenous person. I'm going to teach you how to be Indigenous, I'm not teaching you. I just connect you. I just, show you how to get a hold of your people. That's their business. I have a deep respect for our individuality, and I'm very anti-homogenization of all of our people. I want people to be able to preserve their own people their own way, right? Yeah. So, but we'll see those lives where someone puts themselves up as the head Indigenous person and they're telling everybody what is and isn't Indigenous. And that's not how all Indigenous people greet each other. and it's not. Some tribes are very private. Yeah, some tribes are very private, and I don't think any tribe would be okay with their people doxing themselves and their family on TikTok to prove their indigeneity. You know what I mean?
Oh, I've seen it happen.
Yeah. And some things
happens a lot.
some tribes don't want their language shared.
Right. Right.
Or
their peoples, you know?
Yeah, and they'll get somebody up in their box and they'll be like, speak your language, jump through this fiery hoop, what, jump through that, who's your grandpa, who says, dox your whole family. And it's like, look, you're not the arbiter of indigeneity. Either they are or not indigenous, I get it. Well, that's how indigenous people. No, not all tribes. And frankly, a lot of tribes are getting a little irritated. Like, there are elders on this app. I want to let you people know, I've said this before, I'm going to say it again. Some are open and out there, and they're just, cool with you knowing who they are. Like Renee is an elder. She's cool with that. But there are other elders that are on this app, and their user IDs are like user, bunch of social security numbers. Okay.
Yeah.
And they're watching and they don't like this crap. Stop it.
That one blows my mind a lot of the time. And for me, it's the same people who are like, stop acting like pan-indigeneity exists, right? Like, stop acting like everybody acted the same way. And at the same time, they're like, well, all of us do it this way. And it's like, not the places I grew up in. Like, I didn't learn that until I was older. The places that I grew up in, that's not what you did. I would not have gone and said, this is my mother's people, or this is my mother's family. In part because we all knew, but in part because that's just not how we acted. And it always makes me think of when I was in Standing Rock. For many Lakota people, braiding the hair is an intimate thing. And a young man that I knew from one of the nations over here on the West Coast asked, hey, would somebody braid my hair? And he got like kind of attacked for asking it, because he was told that's just not how indigenous people do it. We don't do that. And he's like, well, that's not how my nation treats that, but okay. There is this, how are we going to say, don't make all indigenous people into one lump thing, and at the same time you're making all indigenous people into one lump thing?
Right. And there are thousands of tribes, and only 500 and some are actually federally recognized, and maybe a few hundred more like state, right? Like, that's not,
I believe the number is 574.
Yeah, that's not a whole lot, but there are a whole lot more who are validly indigenous. That's a lot of people to learn their ways.
Yep.
Okay.
It's a whole lot of nations.
Listen, if you have earned the badge of honor of who is the all, listen. My door is open. My DMs are open. I check them. If you are, in fact, the certified elected arbiter of indigeneity, I want to meet you because I got questions.
Will the real arbiter please stand up?
Yes, will the real arbiter please stand up? Please.
We have questions.
I want to know what degree that's in. That's all I want to know, is what degree was I supposed to get for that?
I don't know, man. I don't know. I don't have that say so.
I do think that that's important, though, when we talk about the fact that, indigenous peoples are not all the same. Lumping us in all of the same, lumping in what it means to belong, lumping in how different nations or different people, trace themselves, or how different people hold ceremony, or how different people decide, what is okay and what isn't okay to be shared. You can't lump that all in together. That's as problematic as it's erasure. It's erasure, frankly. It's just erasure, because it's erasure of the individuality.
Yeah, and one tribe doesn't get the badge of honor for trying to erasure a whole other tribe they know nothing about.
Mm-hmm.
No, can't do that.
I agree with that.
And trying to invalidate someone or a group of people.
Yeah, I agree with that 100.
I hate when someone points at, from one tribe or one group of us and points at another and says, you're not indigenous enough for us because like this. Like, first of all, that's not your business.
Right.
You don't know their customs. You don't know what they're, and they don't actually. The actual tribes don't. It's just individuals, right, who are lost. They're, and I get it. You're scrambling for connection, and I want to help you. Like, you're just slipping on the ice, but you're also screaming at me as I'm trying to reach for your hand.
That's a good analogy.
That is a beautiful analogy.
Like, I'm trying to help you. Don't bite me. Yeah, it's slippery.
I think a lot of that has to do, again, with that just different traumas that everybody is dealing with. We have so many different levels of trauma. It's like when we were talking yesterday about ethnocentrism, a lot of that comes from the level of disconnect of not being able to even tell who your mother is, so you can't tell where you come from, and when we look at the different ways that indigenous nations deal with blood quantum or enrollment, or we look at the way that different people within nations decide, what you're supposed to do and what you're not allowed to do. Like, I've seen two different people from two different nations who will tell you, or not from from the same nation, two different people from the same nation. And one will tell you, if you're indigenous, you're indigenous. There's no blood quantum. And then the other one will tell you, well, you're only reconnecting if you're actively talking to your nation and you've been accepted. And it's like, that's two completely different theories based on the same nation ideas of holding this, and you're in the same nation. Like, which one of you is deciding for everybody else? Like, that's not how it goes. It's so broadly dispersed in its ideology because of the trauma that people have gone through, because of the disconnects.
Do I open the package of earrings that I got in the mail?
Always.
Or do I wait for my fiance to get home and open the package of earrings that he got me from the mail? He got a good check, and so we went and got some earrings because I love collecting earrings. I'm excited.
That's awesome. I love earrings. I don't do a lot of girly things, but I love earrings. And black lipstick.
I wish my ears weren't so sensitive.
I recently got some from an Aleut. I don't know if I'm pronouncing the Aleut correctly, but that's a tribe, it's the Aleut tribe of Alaska. It's Aleut, Aleut.
Yeah.
I love getting indigenous made earrings from online too. I have so many beautiful creators and friends. And I do my own earrings, so I haven't beat it in a minute. But having the ability to not only find beautiful earrings, but be able to send people, hey, look, I got these from this person, and to be able to wear somebody's art.
It's one of my favorite things. And these ones that I got are sealskin.
Oh, I have the, oh my God, who did yours? Don't throw things over, Sarah. Makwa did mine. The sealskin that I have. Oh, they're hung up, aren't they? Never mind. I can't get them because the partner's sleeping. I have sealskin one she made me. Some of my ancestry in the like my Irish ancestry carries with it a legend of a Selkie woman becoming a part of our family. And I have webbed toes, which is supposed to have been a signifier of having Selkie ancestry. And when you trace it, you can see that the Selkie are most likely the Finns being named the Selkie by the Irish and the Scottish, who did not we're seeing people in sealskin covered kayaks, covered in sealskin, clothing, and thinking that this is a seal. And of course, if you take a woman's kayak, you keep her, right? She can't travel away. And they have that the trace of lineage within people who have the webbed fingers and the webbed toes within Scotland and Ireland. They can trace the genetic variation for that to Finland. And so I'm like, I'm part Selkie. I need sealskin. So I got sealskin earrings, and they have this braided sweet grass surrounding them. They're like my favorite thing in the world. I love them. Sorry, a tangent about earrings.
Oh my gosh. So my username used to be Selkie Luna.
Aww.
Because of, well, not like a lot of like ancestral dreams and stuff coming to me of seals, swimming with the seals, being the seals. And like I connected with just like the whole story of the Selkie.
Mm-hmm.
And like I have ancestry from there as well. And so that's so cool. That's so wonderful. That's one of the reasons why I love wearing my seals, because I feel a weird kind of connection to like that Northern European native.
Yep. Well, and the Finn would be actually indigenous, because the Finn
it'd be Sami, wouldn't it?
No, Sami and Finn are
Or
two
close to
different
Sami.
groups, but they are two different not culture. Well, they are culture, two different cultures. They are two different communities. They were kind of mixed together by the Norwegians and the Swedish, but they are absolutely two different communities. The thought process is that they do come over from the steppes at the same time in that 7,000 year ago timeline. But they
so they'd be considered Finno-Ugric people?
Yes, they're Finno-Uraic peoples. Absolutely.
Uraic, sorry, Uraic.
No, you're fine.
That is what they do.
They are Finno-Uraic languages, language people, Finno-Uraic groups. And I actually had somebody who is Finn, and they're like, well, we never thought of ourselves as a Selkie, so that wouldn't work. And I'm like, yes, most people don't think of themselves as what other people have decided to name them, right? Like the Celts would have named you the Selkie, not because they understood you or knew what you called yourself. They would have named you the Selkie because they didn't understand you and you were magical. There was actually a specific type of seal that is related to a lake, an interior sea lake in Finland that died out because it was harvested so much for canoe, or not canoe, kayak and outerwear. And they are one of the Arctic groups that was constantly traveling in the Arctic regions. So, sorry, that's one of my tangents. I love that one.
I just want to be real quick. Someone I know came through. He's just a little like he was there. He witnessed lives and stuff that happened. Like, we're not doing that here. We're just trying to help people.
Oh yeah.
Just letting people know how they can connect and stuff. We're not doing that right now, boss. We're not doing that. At the end of the day, here's the deal. It's a very sad state of affairs when it takes minutes to reconnect people. And then we're having everybody running around invalidating those people and their indigeneity. If people have done their homework and they have their connection to their people, they know who they are. Who am I? Who are you? Who is anyone to tell them that they cannot claim their valid indigenous ancestry? That is not our business. We're not the boss.
I do have different lives for different things throughout the week. And so, if we want to talk about your experience as an Indigenous person or things like that, that is something that we'll probably be later this week, I actually found an indigenous creator who is Amazigh, which is the Amazon of North Africa, who I'm hoping will be able to come in and speak to us about their indigenous heritage. They are a current thriving matriarchal culture that has maintained their matriarchy this entire time. And I am so eager to hear more. I love watching them. So we also focus on indigenous groups outside of the Americas, and we will be working on that later on. Today's live is absolutely about helping people who have indigenous heritage here in North America to find reconnection to nations, if they have indigenous connection to nations, so that they can get that reconnection if that is what they're working towards. But we do have other levels. And as for the being online too much, I have to say, I don't think that's anybody else's to judge. Like,
Yeah, I own a business. I do marketing. It makes the time go by quicker when I'm working. So.
Well, and it doesn't matter. Nobody else's business about how you support yourself. It's not like you're on here asking people to support you.
Right, my bills are paid. So.
Yeah.
Pretty earrings. Show you.
Oh, those are lovely. Oh, I like the variation in the pattern.
Yeah, and this is the designer.
Hold on a second.
It's
I think I can.
$10. It's trying to focus. It's trying so hard.
There you go.
There we go.
Oh, those are lovely. Hold on, I'll go get mine.
Oh, that's so pretty.
And I believe the backs of these are seal. Sorry, they're fish leather.
Oh.
Oh man.
Yeah, it's a fisherwoman that makes the earrings. So I love supporting.
Yeah, you're right.
Makes me very happy.
Now I have to show mine. I had to go and get them.
Yes.
I'm wondering, I think I have Makwa's card in here somewhere. I was like, I bet I have Makwa's card and I can actually show that too. But I'm not sure where. But I will show mine. Let me see how to do this.
My fiance said that next paycheck he was gonna get me some from I don't know if any of you follow Resilient Inuk.
Oh, I think so.
Vanessa. She has some really pretty, like the red dress earrings, and she has some that are two-spirit.
Oh.
Themed.
That would be awesome.
And that's so cool, and I'm really excited. Yeah, the colors of the beads are gorgeous. And this person can be found on Etsy.
Etsy.
Yep. Etsy has everything. So Etsy, and I will
it didn't work. Hold on, I'm flipping my camera. Actually, I have a pair of red dress earrings left that I made. So I'll show you those too. I don't make any more right now just because I'm too I have to be in the right mind to bead. If I'm not in the right mind to bead, it doesn't work for me. But
I feel you. Oh, that is beautiful.
This is Makwa. They are I believe they're actually two-spirit, actually. I can't remember for sure. But they're up in coastal Salish territory. And they're so in like BC, British Columbia, and they're and they're a hand-poked traditional tattoo artist. So they go around and they do traditional tattooing for people as well. And so this is some of their beadwork. I have a lot of their beadwork. My Bernie earrings that I wear that look like this, but they've got Bernie Sanders at the inauguration in the center. They're by Makwa too. But they did these, and this is what I love the most. This is sweetgrass here. So they put a sweetgrass braid around a lot of their earrings and their medallions that they make. And then this is only for show just because, I'm actually really proud of these. These actually I need to send to somebody. I'm just so horrible at that. But these are one of the red dresses.
Oh, that's so cute.
With dentalia? Wait,
yes.
Are those? What's at the end? Is it?
So this is a jade.
Tears?
No, it's jade, I think.
Jade.
And then I've got, this is all dentilium up here as well. And it's supposed to be a representation of a jingle dress. Have a great one, Trey. But yeah, so I haven't beaded in probably 2 years. I think before 2020 was my last beading, but I enjoyed it. Thank you. When I start beading again, I might have some. I just don't. Well, and I have to gift. I can't sell because if I sell it, it becomes an obligation. And when it becomes an obligation, I can't handle it. But I only started selling because I had too many people asking me for them. And I was like, okay, well, I have to like put a price on these so that I get supplies back. And then I have to like put a list, like make sure that I'm not overdoing it. Oh, I thought I had Makwa's stuff. I know I have it somewhere. I will get Makwa's information and tag people or do a video with Makwa's information because they're one of my favorite artists. Between the fact that they do so much beadwork and the fact that they literally travel all around doing traditional tattooing for people, I'm just enthralled.
I just had a formula delivery. Because I'm tube fed, I'm on a feeding tube. I have to have formula delivered every single month.
Does not sound fun.
And we're in a new place now, so like they have to figure out where we are. And we don't have a buzzer. So he was like, "Next time, can I just knock on your window? Because you're that one right there, right?" And I was like, "Yep, you can knock on my window. It's fine." But it's good because I have formula because we weren't sure if I was actually going to get any supplies because there's an adult formula shortage right now.
I believe that, yeah.
Yep, and it's the same brand that had the baby formula shortage. Okay. But it even reached to Nestle. Nestle is now also having a formula shortage. So now my fiance and I have to be very, 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 very careful because they put me on a different formula that can clog my tube. And a clogged tube means I have to have it changed out. And if it's clogged, it's a painful procedure.
Yeah. It's pretty nasty.
Yeah.
I'm sorry, that's so hard.
I'm wavering between like, do I increase my feed rate and just like stop it every once in a while, or do I continue with it low and just do more flushes? It's just a whole debacle. I wish I could eat more indigenously. I really wish I could. But I do when I can eat, because when I can eat, what my body processes is like meat. My body processes meat and fruit very easily. But when it comes to like really doughy, floury stuff, it doesn't want to go down.
Yeah.
My body hates digesting it. Because we're not supposed to be eating that. That's what we're supposed to be eating.
None of us are supposed to be eating it, let's be real. Oh, did I lose you? I lost you, Levity.
He's got a call from work. Welcome back.
I'm so sorry. I got a call for work. Again, I do this while I work. So I love you. It's nice. It's nice to be able to run a business, and then, I wanted to do something to distract from the feeling of being like I'm working, and then, this came along. I get to do good stuff. It makes me feel good to connect people. It makes me feel good. I like it. It's good.
Me too. You guys are good people.
Try to be. Not perfect, that's for sure. But, doing the best I can with what I got.
I've decided that the aim is not perfection because perfection is somebody else's idea anyways. And perfection is very monoculture, mono-humanity. So my aim is not perfection. My aim is accountability and healing for others and myself.
I feel that.
Right.
I feel like we think too often that we're supposed to be perfect, and then we forget that it is a learning journey from beginning to end.
Whew. I think if we all just take a little bit of our spare time, just a little bit, I don't know, just start connecting people, we can fix this problem.
Well, and I think I'm going to, so I am currently in the middle with Felina and Lucy and trying to figure out where Lucy was born and find all of that stuff for the direct maternal line, which is Sudanese. And then I have to go back through and look through my records for the Turtle Island Indigenous line and make sure that I have it all correct. Because I go through, like, I use online things, but when you use those online things, you kind of have to go back through and make sure that somebody didn't put the wrong information in. And so I have to make sure I get through that and everything else. And then I'm probably going to talk to one of you guys about how to not trace it, but take what I've traced to the right space. And so I'll probably be asking for help again, or for help shortly myself. It's not something that I've ever really tried to do. And yet, I think that when you don't belong when you've never belonged any place, there's kind of a hole there. There's kind of a pain there. And I'd like to work on that, I guess, is the best way.
I feel that.
Well, and then validating people is step one to maintaining those open lines.
Yeah.
To the road back home. There are some people, like I bring it up as an example. We all have family members. Hang on just a second, I gotta get something.
And I am going to hop off in probably 10 minutes. My partner did wake up, and so I'm probably going to go help them get stuff together before they head into work. Just so everybody has a warning before I just take off. But I will probably take off in about 10 minutes.
Appreciated.
You can hear him doing the dishes in there.
I'm trying to... Anybody have magic powers and can just tell me where my earring backs are? Because I can't find my earring backs.
They're in the little dish on top of your nightstand.
Oh, I don't have a nightstand.
It was
we
wild.
decided to get rid of nightstands in this apartment, so instead we have like floating shelves.
Oh, well, so that's your nightstand. It's in the little dish on top of your floating shelf.
I looked there. It's not there.
Yeah.
I thought I put it in my fiance's things, but I could not find it in his things. So now
He was supposed to hold on to those for you, wasn't he?
Right, always. Gosh. The audacity of his caucasity.
Well, that caucasity gets you every time.
Sorry, I had to take care of someone who works for me. I had to make sure they got paid. Beginning of the month blues, man. There goes my money. But it's a small business, so it's I do that in person. I told him swing by, give him his check. He's good. Anyway, yeah, at the end of the day, we should all be pitching in. Everybody needs to grab an oar or get out of the way.
Yeah.
I'm not saying you're not indigenous enough. There's nobody who's more indigenous than the next person. I'm just saying, quit running off people trying to reconnect. That's it.
It always goes back to me with the thought process that, every indication, every knowledge that we have, whether it comes from elders or from the colonizers themselves, is that most of the nations that were met in their initial meeting were nations who were welcoming, who were inclusive, who were loving. It's documented how there wasn't starvation because they weren't sitting here going, well, you're not good enough to eat. They were feeding the elders. They were feeding the orphan children. There were no orphan children because orphan children are taken into family. They're a part of community, all of these things are documented on whether it's in our own oral traditions or it's in the written stuff that the Europeans put out. So if all of these things document just how welcoming we were why would we think that being the opposite today is somehow reconnecting us?
Right. And there's a we talk about, oh, well, we don't want reconnecting Indigenous people to speak over those who are connected because we're teaching the right way. Here's the deal. We saw earlier today that we have disconnected Indigenous peoples who have a story to tell, and that is part of our story. And honestly, silencing them when they're look, I get it when they're trying to speak over those who are connected in other ways and whatnot, like it's a balance, right? But like nobody knows everything.
Yeah.
And if you find somebody who knows everything, like I need to meet that person. I desperately want to meet that person because like they'll have information for me too, right? And I want to be more knowledgeable. I really do. But they have a story to tell too, and that is part of our family story because they are part of our family. Like we need to start thinking of this in terms of we are reuniting lost people, lost family. This needs to be, what it is. This is not twisting the story. They were kidnapped. They were run off. They were terrorized until they ran. They hid.
Yeah.
Until they felt safe. And by the time it got safe, it was a few generations down the line. And it still kind of isn't safe in some circumstances, right? And they were put under so much trauma and stuff. And it's like, let's do some healing. I'm certainly not perfect myself. I'm just saying that, like, if we as a whole support each other in reconnecting those who were disconnected, we can get answers to missing people stories and then help heal the trauma in our cousins.
Absolutely.
We can.
It makes me think about, oh no, I lost a train of thought. No, crap, I had it. Oh,
trauma does that.
Stop being me. Stop being me. Lose your train of thought everywhere.
My mom's side of the family, where I found the ancestry through her father. His mother was of Mohawk descent, and it was not anything that was ever talked about. It was something that I found digging in the trees, and I found it, and I read about it, and I read about her. I read about the great great grandmother. I don't know how many greats it was, but grandmother of mine, who was noted as saying that she wanted her children to practice her culture. She wanted her children to practice the culture, but they didn't. It died out in her line. And it felt like when I found that, I was like, oh, I'm going to do that for you. I'm going to find things out and start letting our family, know who we are and do things that are cultural things. Like she was known as being a wonderful beater. She beaded, and I'm a beater. So, how many of us have those ancestors that wanted that to happen, that wanted us to continue to practice the culture, but something happened that stopped it? Probably her husband.
Yeah.
What part did you say? I'm sorry, I'm beating. That's what my whole dining room table's about, the beads. And the fabric.
It's my mom.
So
my mom's Mohawk.
Oh my gosh. Okay. So do you have any connections with them?
I know that I am descended from, I know the native name was White Cloud.
White Cloud. Okay. My tribe used to summer with the Mohawks. I'm Nanticoke Lenape. So during during the summertime, we would go and spend the entire summer with the Mohawks, and then on the wintertime, we would go back to Delaware because it was warmer. We're not snow lovers. So that's interesting. Wow. Okay. Is she still here?
Yeah, she's still. Oh, I think she might be paused.
Okay.
Which, if she's listening and like she scrolled off to try and find something, it'll show her as paused. It does that every time, like I scroll off something, so she could still be hearing what we're saying and be like trying to look up something on her phone or something.
Okay. Okay. If she wanted to know anything about, I see she's right. You want to know anything about the Mohawk people, because one thing about our tribe is while you're up here during the summer, people found summer love. And we've actually had Mohawks who married into our tribe and moved from upstate New York down to Delaware. So we've kind of been a historically bonded tribe with the Mohawk people. One of our clans, the Wolf Clan, actually left Delaware and joined the Cayuga Nation, the entire nation. So they're kind of a mixed group of Nanticokes and Cayugas. So you need to know anything about smoke dancing or anything to do with the First Nations, just hit me up, friend me, ask me. I will definitely let you know or answer any questions about culture or dress or regalia or anything.
Thank you so much. I'm so glad I got to meet you today, Renee. Like, I don't know how I didn't see you before. So I'm so glad that I got to meet you. I am going to go ahead and shut us down. I will be doing more of this. We'll try and do another one either later this week or early next week for this specifically. I am still also going to be doing a couple of lives that are focused on discussing indigeneity here and discussing indigeneity in other areas of the globe from peoples of those other areas, so that as a global unit, land back, because to me, land back must be a global thing for it to really work. Because for me, land back is a part of that, healing our planet as well. So trying to bring in other voices so that we can see those connections, so we can make those connections is important. So we will be focusing on that. And then we will be talking later this week about cannibalism and early hominins, which is what we touched on a little bit last night. But we will be back. I am going to end it. I'm going to wait just a couple minutes, give everybody a chance to say goodbye and everything else. And I'll stop for now. Much love, everybody. Thank you so much for coming up. And thank you, Peace and Truth, for working for this and for helping this connection.
I'm such a small part of this. It was actually not just me who thought of this. Like Renee and a bunch of us older connected Indigenous folks, we kind of got together and we kind of evaluated what we saw on TikTok and the whole, anti-indigeneity amongst our own people. And we felt like the best way to address it was to just start connecting people.
That's beautiful. Thank you, both of you.
Thank you for having me.
Thank you so much for having me.
Absolutely. Anytime I can help uplift us and anytime I can help make sure that, our healing happens, on a broad scale, I'm always down for it. It may not be the focus of my teachings because, I do believe that, I'm not going to teach culture. It's not my space, but it is absolutely the end result is that that ability to find that community for all of us. We'll do this again soon. Much love, everybody.
Thank you. Much love.
Thank you.
Bye, YouTube. I don't think you're there. Bye-bye.